Have you ever been in the midst of something and just lose your desire to continue? Like, have you been so overwhelmed by what you're doing? We can even say burned out, that you're just like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? Whether you're working on a major project or you're giving everything, your heart, your effort, your soul, your time, your energy, everything you have, and it's just not panning out. And then when you think that you are just about tapped out, that's when you're reminded, this is why I do it. We'll be talking about that next. My name is Jennifer Mitchell Earley. This is Leadership Matters, our uncut version. We're outside in the elements that I hope that you'll add to our conversation. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so that every time I upload a new video, you'll be the first to know. So I don't know if you've experienced this before, but recently I have come to moments, spaces in time where I felt like I have given this thing all that I can give it, right? Like where you question, why am I even doing this? Like, is there really a return on investment for me? And then out of nowhere, you're reminded, this is why I do it. So I've shared in other videos how I got into public office and about my dad and all that. And if you haven't seen it, I'll link it here about how I got started in politics. But I've been now in my current community for 11 years. And I'll have to say that, you know, once I branched out on my own outside of my dad from up underneath his wings, it was like a different ball game. For one, it's a different municipality with different people and different challenges. But then, two, there were things that I had to kind of navigate on my own. And even though I had veteran elected officials here that I could ask questions of, and of course, I can always ask my dad his thoughts and opinions on things, there were things that I needed to navigate really on my own. Ultimately, it was my vote, it's my position, and I would have to take a stand one way or the other and be able to explain myself. So just let me give you a little background on, you know, how I came to this community. I am residing in a home that was built by my grandparents. And when I got here, I had just kind of retired from my other municipality, moved to another city. And then when my grandmother passed away, I moved here to her home. And there were some people who knew me, like on the police force or what have you, from the municipality I was raised in and I served in. And they were like, hey, you should be on council out here. And, you know, I wanted no parts of it. I've said before that I felt like politics was messy based on my experience with my dad. And I had no intentions of ever going back to it. However, clearly things changed. And I remember the councilman that was out here that knew my dad had a relationship. They started the Suburban Black Elected Officials organization together. He was getting ready to retire. He was building a home here, you know, that was his retirement home, his dream home. And he was like, hey, I'm really looking for someone who I can pass the mantle down to. And at the time I was getting a driveway put in, and that's why he was here, because he was talking to my father about the codes and, you know, as it related to getting an asphalt driveway laid. And so I have Bailey out here, so I'm keeping an eye on her too. So if I look away, that's what I'm looking for. But he asked me, and I was like, oh, absolutely not. I have zero interest in taking your seat, but I so appreciate the offer and the consideration, and you thinking that, you know, I'd be the right person to take your mantle and take your seat. Well, unfortunately, the councilman had a debilitating health crisis, which caused him to not be able to fulfill his term. At which time the council here, after some time with trying to see if he would, make a comeback and be able to take his seat back, determined that, they needed to fill his seat. So a former treasurer that I work with at my first municipality said, hey, you should consider this position. I just happened to be at a space and time and a season in my life where, I thought this might work out. It's a smaller community than from where I came from. I don't have the same challenges as it relates to, my name recognition and all of those things. Even though, like I said before, I got that good Mitchell name, there were still those things that came along with it that out here, not too many people knew who I was. And so it would be almost like starting all over again. And I wouldn't have to necessarily worry about the baggage that came along with just some of the mess that came along within my former municipality as it related to, I talked about how when I ran and people thought that my dad was going to lose his seat, not only was I not going to win, but he was going to be unseated. And, people reveled in that. And I didn't like that. And even thinking about it now, I still don't like it. So I just thought, well, no one really knows who I am here. When I was a little girl here, and nobody really puts two and two together. Though they knew my grandmother, they confused me and my mother often. So I thought maybe I'll give that a try. So I did. I applied for the open position. And I'll tell you something interesting. There was a gentleman on council who was running for the mayor position, and it was at the end of his term. And when you run at the end of your term, you either determine, I'm either going to run for re-election for the seat that I currently have, or I'm going to seek a seat that I don't have. So in this example, he was running for the mayoral election, which means he was not seeking re-election for his council seat. And so I started going to council meetings because I always think it's a good idea, right? If you're going to, any organization that you are looking to be a part of, that you would at least do the research on it and know what's going on with the organization, know their vision for the future, their mission, all those things that you would do for any other position in private sector. I think you should do the same for positions in public sector. So I applied for the position. I started going to council meetings. And it probably was like 9 names, 9 people in the community who were looking to be appointed to the seat, and the council could not make a determination. And what I thought was funny was they intended on reappointing the councilman who lost the mayoral election, when you cannot, by your own charter, appoint someone who is already in office. Meaning that if you run for an office in November, that's when the general election is held, and you are seated in this example, he was seated in his council position, and you run for the mayoral position and you lose it, then you cannot be appointed in that year up until December 31st for the council seat that was open. You would have to be out of your term, which means he would have had to been appointed January 1. So long story short, it didn't work. I was a former elected official and I believed in reading code. So I understood what the charter said, and I knew that was not going to work. So I was subsequently appointed by the mayor because council could not get a majority vote to appoint someone to the seat. So I was appointed in December of 2009. December 31st, I was appointed in 2009. Okay, so that's Bailey. Anyway, so I'm appointed. I'm the new, girl in town, new council member who likes to read code and ordinances and charter and all that to understand, what's going on in the organization, how I can contribute. And I remember I had asked a question to the administrative assistant who had been the administrative assistant for multiple administrations for years and years and years. She just recently retired in, I would say, the last maybe 6 years. And I was like, hey, I was reading the charter or reading the administrative code, And it indicated that I'm supposed to, like, the secretary does the minutes for planning and zoning, and those things are distributed, and that I would get a copy and blah, 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 blah. And she was like, "You're such an eager beaver." And I laugh now. She was one of my supporters. But at the time, I mean, the connotation of an eager beaver wasn't necessarily a positive one. Like, it wasn't a pat on the back, like, "You go, girl, you're reading everything, you're understanding everything." But it was more like what she said: "You're going to make her quit because we've been doing things this way for years. And here you come with your questions and your assertions, essentially saying I was going to rock the boat." And all I said was, I was just reading what's in the charter for the municipality and or the administrative code, which indicates, you know, how this thing is structured and what should the responsibilities of the secretary. And I was just asking a question. So that was the beginning of my 11 years in my current municipality. And I just give you the background to let you know that it was a lot of work. It still is quite a bit of work. And oftentimes throughout my 11 years, I have thought, what? Why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself out there time and time again? I've had residents tell me, older residents of older municipality tell me that they will never support a woman over a man. They don't believe that's a woman's place. You know, I've had people, you know, write newsletters and contrast me to Idi Amin, the African dictator who, you know, led the slaughter of his own people. Like, I've had people put out flyers with me as a cartoon telling men to shield their loins and putting a police report out about a domestic incident that I had in my marriage. It has been challenging, to say the least, at times. I mean, some of the things that they do or that have been done to me as a woman, I've never seen done as a man. And I'm not saying the things they get nasty when my father ran, I told you they did, but never like this, never below the belt, never so guttural and so nasty. But it's in those moments when I'm writing newsletters monthly, printing them, folding them, distributing them to every resident in my municipality, whether you like me or you don't like me, whether you support me or you don't support me. It's been those things that times where individuals have said, "I wouldn't know if you didn't tell me. If I didn't get your newsletter, I wouldn't know what was going on. I appreciate this." That is why I do it. For these residents out here who have put their faith in the job that I do for them, who care about this community, who, like my grandparents, built a home out here, that's why I do it. So it's been a long journey. I've come kind of, I feel like, full circle, and which has prompted me to do this video today, in that, you know, I told you before, I'm a minister, so I understand the concept of seed time and harvest, right? So you plant the seed. There's time where the seed is nurtured and watered and it sprouts and is cultivated, right? And then there is the harvest. You reap what you sow. But for so many of us, myself included, I want to drop the seed and I want to hover over it because I want to see when it sprouts. I want to see, didn't the seed know I just watered it yesterday? Where's the fruit? That takes time. And so what I've learned out here is that in all my hard work and all my efforts to get an engaged electorate, I'm beginning to see the fruit. I ran last year in a very crowded field. Every time I run, it's a crowded field. The cycle before mine, the 3 incumbents ran unopposed. Nobody ran against them. This time, I believe there were 8 people in the race. And I remember when I went to go get my petition signed, and I've told you before, And you can look at other videos and see my whole life I've been canvassing communities. It's not one of my favorite times, gonna be honest. It's a lot of work to knock on doors, but I think it's essential to communicate with your residents. And this time, and in the time past, I took my daughter because every 4 years she's 4 years older, so she can be a part of it and she understands what's going on. And so as we knocked on doors, it's time to get my petition signed. As I explained who I am and this is my daughter, many people remarked, I know who you are. I get your newsletter. I recognize you from your newsletter. And that made me feel good. That was my return on investment. Those are the things I'm looking for. Like I said, you don't have to agree with me. I'm not looking for my electorate to always be like, great job. You're the best thing since sliced bread. I agree with you 100,000%. That's unrealistic and that's not going to happen. But what I do want to see is them engaged, because at some point I will not be in this seat. At some point you will no longer get newsletters from me because I won't be here to distribute it, and or I won't be in this position. And then you'll have to figure out how you're going to ascertain information. You're going to have to understand that there is a void, that you're not getting information. Why aren't you getting information? And what information should you have as a resident about money that's being spent on your behalf, your tax dollars, because taxes aren't going down. Property taxes aren't going down. Income taxes aren't going down. Don't you want to know how your money is being spent? Don't you want to know that it's going into good ground, that people are being responsible, and that you can hold them accountable for the things that they're doing in your name? So last night we had a council meeting, and I had dropped a newsletter about a master planning process and some very significant changes that are being proposed for our community. And I was so proud to be the council president of this municipality when residents took the time to log in. And if you're an elected official, in particular, if you're a council person or even a school board member, you know that 9 times out of 10, you're talking to each other. You're looking out at empty chairs because people are not attending unless there's something controversial. So if there is a hot button issue and there are going to be news cameras, or if it's affecting a street, you may have a whole street of residents that come out, and they're coming out in solidarity, and they're passionate, and they're upset a lot of times about what's going on. But other than that, you don't really get the engagement. And I've had residents tell me over the years, I'm not coming to council meetings. Don't look for me. That's why I elected you. And I get it. I understand it all. I understand you're busy, you work, and that's, and when people come to your door and ring your bell and tell you what they can do for you and how they're going to represent you, and you believe in them and you vote for them, that's exactly what you expect them to do. Understandable. Get it. But how do you know when they're not doing it? Is it when you lose a service? Let me just tell you something about our municipality. We have some of the coldest services around. There's not a neighboring community that can beat us. We got two garbage days. Our service department will dump anything for you: mulch, soil, gravel, whatever you need, for free. We loan to our residents tables and chairs. You having a graduation party? You don't have to rent that. We'll take care of that for you. Just call us. Call our service department. We'll take care of that. We give our residents free garbage bags. I ain't talking about the 13-gallon. I'm talking about the 30-gallon every year. We plow the snow for our senior residents. We are the bomb.com as it relates to our services. Guess when people will understand that we're having fiscal issues if they're not paying attention? When you don't have those services anymore. When all of a sudden we tell you we can't afford to buy you garbage bags. When we tell our senior residents, which we have the majority of, you should probably call your family and ask them to get you somebody to tow that or to push your snow, because we're not going to push snow anymore. We have phenomenal services. And that I'm talking about is just the tip of the iceberg. So I can tell you that I am so grateful for the reminders of why I do what I do. Whenever a resident calls me and they thank me for giving them information or for following through on something, whenever I can make their lives a little bit easier, whenever I can inform them and steer them in the right direction, that is why I do what I do. And the reward comes from seeing our community continue to move forward, continue to be viable and sustainable, to watch neighbors still check on each other and talk to one another, to, see our community policing at work. This is why I do it. And for any elected individual in office, that should be why you do it too. It's a thankless job. It's like ministry. I mean, your pastor is not coming around saying, hey, Sister Jenkins, you ain't called me to tell me thank you for that wonderful sermon I did the other day. Or, I didn't have to pray for you, but I did. We all do. Without these positions and people who are willing to work selflessly, our churches can't work, our communities can't work, our districts can't work. Without the volunteer parents, where would we be? So I'm just coming on to say that leadership in all areas is important, and not just how you direct people, but why you do what you do is important too. And if you're feeling burnt out and you're feeling unappreciated and you're feeling like you don't know why you're in it anymore, that's when you need to take a step back and really think about, like, why am I here? And if you're where you're supposed to be, if you're walking in purpose, I guarantee the encouragement will come. I guarantee that you will be reminded quickly of why you are where you are. As council president with my council body, they always remind me of, why I'm in the position and what I bring to the table as their leader. And I appreciate all that. I love that. And you would find it hard to believe that one of my greatest supporters on council, one of my go-to leaders, was once one of my arch enemies on council. She didn't support me in anything. She talked against me in the community and will admit to it to this day. But once we put all that aside, what somebody said about her, what somebody said about me, once we realized that we really had a heart for the community and that together we could work together and we could do some great things for this municipality, there was no stopping us. I rely on her. I count on her. And even though I have friends who may not agree with my assessment of her, that is your assessment. I'm a big girl. I know how I perceive people. And I don't need, for someone else's perceptions and I don't allow for someone else's perceptions to cloud mine. And we both had that moment where we both were like, you know what? I thought X, Y, and Z about you, and I was wrong. Accept my apology. And she has come through for me, both professionally and personally. And so that's another reason why I do what I do, because it's greater than me. It's greater than her. It's greater than council. It's about our community and what we're doing. And, gosh darn it, last night, I was smiling from ear to ear. And not to say that some of my residents don't come from me from time to time, because they do. And not to say that that everything goes smoothly all the time, because it does not. I get calls where I am embarrassed to have to respond to, because somewhere along the line, a ball was dropped. But hands down, when I have residents who are engaged and who care about this municipality and are willing to go to whatever lengths to ensure that we maintain, we've been here for 75 years and our goal is to be here for 75 more. That's why I'm reminded this is why I do what I do. It's going to be a time where I'm going to retire, and I've given thought about retiring sooner rather than later. My daughter is going to go into her senior year and get ready to go to college. And, I'm like, Stella, it's time for me to get my groove back, and focus on other things other than my child and my municipality and all those things. So I'm thinking about the future, but I also believe that the legacy that I'm leaving here that I'm leaving the community better than when I came into it, that's also very important. So I just want to say to all my leaders out there that are, getting burned out, that are trying to figure out if I'm where I'm supposed to be, take a breather, get quiet, go out in nature, be prayerful if you're a person of faith, meditate, yoga, whatever it takes. Get in tune with Mother Earth, whatever you call it, whatever it is for you, so that you can be reaffirmed and you can be refreshed and you can be reminded that this is why I do it. If you like this video, please please right now, hit the thumbs up, like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks for joining me, guys, in my uncut raw version.